but in a very was nothing like the one right now, because like many of you may know, I grew up in Panama, and back in those years, there was no open concept. In fact, there was a wall dividing the cooking area from the social areas. And that's how things were done. That's how I grew up. It wasn't until I got married, moved to Ottawa in Canada, when I discovered the conveniences, the advantages of having no separation between the kitchen and the living room area or the bonus room. I really, really enjoyed it. By then, I had 3 small children, so you can imagine how much more convenient it was for me as a mom to be able to cook while my kids were playing or watching TV. In fact, I really, really enjoyed it because I love entertaining. So for me, bringing a couple friends to our home and having an open kitchen meant that I could be part of the socialization. In fact, my friends could join me in serving or preparing the snacks, and no one was missing out on anything. So I really appreciate the open spaces, the open designs that started to come out around the 1990s. And now it's normal. Now it's part of every design. I think we cannot even fathom a home where the kitchen is completely closed to the social areas. And I know you can relate to that, because as you've been shopping for homes, even when you're renting, you most likely had an open concept kitchen, living, dining room. Now, even though it is very convenient for our dynamics, it still presents a challenge. And as I read your questions, in fact, the topic of this episode came from a follower who sent a question asking about how to connect the areas in his open concept apartment. And I thought this would be a really good topic because every new home right now has that as well. So I was going to mention that as I join many of private Facebook groups that center or they talk about design and decor, I read the questions. And a lot of the questions that I read about are questions like, how do I design my living dining room when it's open? How do I create, something that is cohesive when it's so open? I don't even know where to start. And that is a really very valid question, because as you come in and you see this blank walls, this open spaces, you're wondering, where do I even start? Do I start with the furniture or the colors, and does it have to be all the same colors? And anyway, so these are very valid questions. So I'm here to offer you 3 different tips about designing successfully open spaces. So number 1 is traffic flow. Number 2 is focal points. And number 3, it's all about cohesiveness. So let's talk about one by one: traffic patterns or traffic flow. So the first thing to remember is that family dynamics are different from one household to another. My family may come in through the garage door with bags and backpacks and all these things that we bring in with us. Other families come through the front door. I know families that tell their kids to come through the yard into the home because they want to keep the entrance clean and organized. So families are different. Let's not take for granted how our families work. So when you are looking into your open space and what to do, draw the traffic lines, the traffic patterns. how you come in, what do you do? Do your kids go straight to the kitchen? Do you go straight to the kitchen? When you entertain, do you have friends that go from the bonus room or the family room or the dining room to the kitchen? Do you have a formal dining room? Or is it just like a breakfast nook in your kitchen? Or do you have an eat-in area right by the kitchen? Everything's going to change. So draw the traffic patterns, the traffic lines, and make sure that your design is according or in accord to your lifestyle, not style, and certainly not trends. So that's one thing. I had, for example, a client who I'm doing a design strategy for him, and we were placing the TV. I was giving him 3 different options where to place the TV. And option number 3, I think it was close to this empty wall. And it seemed really good positioning it there, positioning the TV there, because the windows would not be giving any glare, and it gave more space for the seating arrangement. But he said, my kids ride their bicycles and their tricycles here, and I'm afraid they're going to bump into the TV, or if he didn't mount it on the wall, they could knock it down. So that is totally valid. That is his dynamic, his family. So what I'm trying to say here is that the first thing you have to do when designing open spaces is to remember your traffic patterns and make sure that before you're buying furniture, before you're deciding what to do, you go for traffic patterns, for the lifestyle, for what works for you and your family. Think about how you connect with everyone in these spaces and make it work for you. The second thing is all about focal points. And when you have an open space, it is hard to decide where the focal point is going to be. If you live in North America, chances are that your family room or your living area close to the kitchen has a fireplace. That tends to be the focal point for these open spaces. So that is your most logical focal point, which you can decorate in so many different ways. We can talk about that on another occasion. The point is that you don't want your focal points to fight each other. I'll give you a very clear example. My own home has the island, the kitchen island, very close to our dining area. So I had to choose if I wanted to have pendants, kitchen pendants over the island, and a chandelier, or what type of lighting. And I chose to have no pendants over the island and just give all the focus of attention to the chandelier because they're too close together. I didn't want to compete. I wanted all the attention to the chandelier. That is my style. That's how I like it. But it's also a really good point of view when it comes to elements, the core elements that are too close to each other, and you don't want them to compete. You want to give the center of attention to that specific focal point. It could be a large piece of art. It could be a gallery wall. It could be a table, an accent cabinet with a lamp. There's so many different ways of attacking focal points, but the point is that in open areas, you don't want to create this conflict between one very good element in your room, like a beautiful art here, and then I turn around and there's decorations, a gallery wall here, and I turn around and there's wallpaper. It's too conflicting. So make sure that the center of attention is one or two things in open spaces. The next thing is all about cohesiveness. And here's where I'm going to invite you to download my free guide because it has a cheat sheet at the very back with 5 very specific and practical tips on how to bring cohesiveness to your space in very simple 5 different steps. So that's something that you could do when you're talking about cohesiveness. Right now, the few tips that I can give you is to think about this open area as one single room. not just the movement of you and your family from one area to another needs to flow, your eyes need to flow. You want to give a very smooth transition from, let's say, your kitchen to your eating area to your social area. And I use these words because you may have a formal living room, and in your open area, what you have is a bonus room. And you may have a formal dining room, but in your open area, you may have a breakfast nook, or you may have your living dining room open to the kitchen, like I do. So I don't want to give one solution to every single home because designs vary. But do remember that in this open area, you want it to feel cohesive. You want it to feel like it's transitioning well from one area to the other to the other. That doesn't mean, however, that you have to have the same repetitive color all throughout these three spaces. You can certainly have a featured wall. And actually, I encourage you to have a featured wall or a focal point because it's going to define that area. It's going to give it purpose and definition. Another thing that you could use to define areas are area rugs. And again, in my guide, you're going to see exactly how to choose area rugs, the size, the position of the area rug, and how to combine it with the other elements that you may have in the room. So use area rugs in your living area, in your dining area, and define the spaces by these smaller area rugs, but make sure you buy the right size. The next thing you can do to create cohesiveness is to make sure you choose a color palette or a main color that you can sort of carry out from one area to the other, and then bring out accessories or pops of colors that you can sprinkle from one area to the other to the other. That way, your eyes will transition smoothly from all these three revolving spaces without feeling that, oh, this is completely different and it doesn't go, without feeling clashy. Now, the one thing that you also want to keep in mind is style. You don't want to have a very modern kitchen with traditional furniture in your dining room, for example. Or you don't want to have a living room that feels very minimalistic, and then right beside you have a dining room that is very ornate in the design, that has a lot of pictures and colors and bold patterns, because these are styles that are clashing one with another. So when it comes to cohesiveness, it's not just the color, it's also the style that needs to flow from one area to another. So again, when designing open spaces, whether it is your first home, whether it's a brand new build, or you're buying from a previous owner, if you have an open space, pay attention to the traffic patterns, pay attention to the cohesiveness of the space and your focal points. And as you pay attention to these three things, you will be able to successfully connect the four, two areas without them clashing or jumping at you as, that it's not working or it's not really flowing. You want them to flow. Again, a reminder to download my free guide. It has guides or practical tips to hang your curtains, to hang your art on your walls, concerning space, scale, location, how to deal with area rugs, how to use furniture placement to your advantage, how to use your drapes. Did I mention that? Drapes too. And again, the cheat sheet at the end for cohesiveness. Again, friends, I hope that these tips help you create areas that connect, but always, always follow your lifestyle. I'll see you next week, again, Wednesday night, 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Have a great day.